Okay, I'm here. Hopefully all is well now. Um, Hi everybody. Um, I am very likely to experience computer issues today, so bear with me, but I'm giving streaming a go. I've got this new computer. It's worse than the last one, which is not great. And I've also switched to Edge to try and see if it was Chrome causing the issues. And I feel like, I mean, the whole combination is worse. I don't know if it's the computer or if it's Edge and Chrome, but we'll see. I will endeavor to stream and see what happens. So there's, again, as usual on Bitcoin, not much more to say. Yeah, so from previous streams, I've basically said, we continue to make and hold demand until we break demand. I'm not looking for shorts. I've had possibilities of short entries throughout, and for the most part, we get reactions off them. Um, but we're still continuing to hold demand and push higher. We've now got a new 5-day demand in here. I have alerted that, however, because also it's the same level as a weekly on CME, but I am conscious that these trend lines stops below. But then, again, we don't have to go and take them out. Like when price is very bullish, then that's quite often not the case. Great, freezing up already. It's just a quick freeze, thankfully. So CME, like I say, so weekly demand at that same level. Korea has now hit supply, which was what I was waiting for over here, you may recall. It's 3 days, a 5-day and a 2-day above, but obviously Korea hasn't taken out all-time high. So again, just to reiterate, back in 2021, price did wait for Korea to take out all-time high too. Like it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to do the same thing. But when we had this first hit here, the US dollar pair took out all-time high, and all demand over there. US dollar pair had taken out all-time high, but Korea hadn't. And then this second test is when Korea came back and took out all-time high. And like I say, it doesn't have to do the same thing, but that's just something to watch out for if we do push higher still from here. It's just something to watch out for, that when Korea takes this out might be the time that the US dollar pair will reject. So that would kind of be the next. So the next zone of interest that I've got on there, obviously we're all-time high, so it can go anywhere, but it is 115 to 123k. Which is where the failed wave from the 113 fib would be if we have a failed wave. Like, we don't have to have a failed wave, but that's just the next zone of interest, and I would look at that in conjunction. Computer's frozen again. I would look at that in conjunction with Korea potentially just swing failing the all-time high to see again. But again, as always, we're looking low time frame. I want to see low time frame support that a move like that. I'm distracted because of the running. Here we go. We're back. Distracted because of the whirring, whatever you call it, the circle of doom in my case. And so I'm hoping the stream's running okay. There's nobody here to check it for me, so we live in hope. So what we do have now actually on BTC is a 12-hour supply. So I'm kind of interested as to whether this rejects. It's been a while since we've had a decent supply. We did have a daily, I think, in here, but obviously it was weak and it ran through it eventually. But here, so yeah, low time frame, just looking to see if we get a rejection on, in the 109s. I did actually have an entry up here yesterday. It was just short of the entry. I'd kind of alerted the 2-hour supply because that coincided. Let's go down to the 4-hour. So there is a 4-hour supply in here which had already tested here but hadn't tested on the CME pair. So I did have an alert for 2-hour, and then I think I had the arrow at the 30-minute. Let's go onto the chart so you can actually see. So on the low time frame chart, this is going to do my head in if we have freezes like this every 5 seconds, and also because I don't know if the stream's actually running okay when it happened. So you can see I had the arrow was on the 30-minute supply inside this 2 hour, because that coincided at that stage with the small premium that was on CME. It coincided with 111k on CME, which is where the 4-hour supply was. So you can see that the wick came just short of that. So it's another level you can watch if it comes back up there. But yeah, provisionally watching this 12-hour supply to see if we come back up into there at all, or if we get a rejection. If it comes back there, and very much just sideways today so far. I think there's FOMC meeting minutes tonight, but there's no news before that. And so yeah, CME also, the structures are all just a bit different. So the other thing we did have yesterday, you can see here, is that we had this contract changeover on the CME pair. And so while the US dollar pair was dropping in the 9 to 10 o'clock time frame, the CME pair didn't drop. However, when the contract changeover happened, price went up 1,000. So we're now 1,000 in premium against the US dollar pair. So you can see there's 109.75 is the closing price on CME, and here 108.770, so $1,000 below, is the closing price on the US dollar pair. Should put my my mouse cursor on before, which I always seem to forget to do. I can never remember the code to do it. Swear it was Alt-Shift-H, no, Alt-Control-H, no. Probably going to freeze my computer again trying to do that. Obviously. There we go. Welcome to my life. I think I might have to suck it up and just buy a new computer with more RAM, because this obviously just isn't cutting it in the slightest. I really hope the stream's not wrecked on this. Oh, did not mean to put language switching on. Alt-Shift-H. Oh, there we go. It is coming up again. See, it didn't work the first time. It was Alt. I was doing Windows. Yeah, so I was just looking here to see the closing price on CME versus the closing price on the US dollar pair at current. So it's $1,000 above on the CME pair. And similarly, I actually noticed that the gap that I was looking at on the CME pair previously, down here, this was also a contract changeover date. So I don't know if that makes it less reliable than like an overnight gap and less likely to fill. I'm not sure. Anyway, I mean, obviously we expect it to fill eventually, but it could just dump anyway. It doesn't have this, obviously not dumping because it's filling the gap now, because we've been up significantly, but it's worth kind of, I guess, considering that gaps that are less likely to fill immediately maybe are these contract changeover ones rather than the weekend ones, which or just randomly during the week if we get a price move at 9 p.m. when CME is closed. Yeah, so anyway, on the lower time frames, I'm watching this 5-day demand on Bitcoin, conscious of those stops below there, which could get taken out, and then obviously again stops below there. Nothing's changed below that. Like obviously there's just lots of zones, and I don't have that alert, the CME gap. So yeah, I just kind of would want to see it when we come down to this many zones. Obviously I can alert here, I can alert here, daily there, 5-day there, 2-month again there. You know, there's many zones I can alert. So I really just need to see it come down and or trade kind of locally. And as you know from previous streams, I've been focusing pretty much on alts anyway. So yeah, so that's the provisional one to watch anyway. And then on the short side, as I've said, you know, if Korea gets up to all-time high, and if the US dollar pair gets into this failed wave box, then again I'd potentially start looking for shorts again there. But really just the lower time frames are kind of important. US dollar dominance doesn't give me much more either. The only thing on US dollar dominance I would say is obviously we're still in a downtrend. It's slowed down, momentum is dying. So again, I'd watch for a test in this 4-hour. However, and this was on a weekly demand here, although it's now taken a wick through it. We do have monthly demand a little bit lower. So again, I would look for confluence on that if BTC is taking out or going to make a new high. So that's that. I don't think there's much more to say on that. Yeah, the only other thing I guess is ETFs are still buying. There wasn't anything on Monday. I think that might have been a bank holiday or public holiday. And I thought it was in Europe, but not in the US. But maybe it was in the US as well, because there was nothing there. And then yesterday again, more heavy BlackRock buying and a little bit of selling coming in from the others. So yeah, we'll see. But nothing really new to report there. And I haven't looked at the other data, and I really actually don't want to now because I don't want to wreck the computer. But as I say, yeah, there's just not much I would add to this because I'm still just waiting for structures to change, and I'm not trading the slow time frames myself at the moment. Like I threw that in that short just for the group to have yesterday. But yeah, I'm sort of like focused on alts. Ether. Ether's interesting actually. So Ether, as you know, is like bear bias because we're in 3 months supply and we were at this sort of major area of interest that I had. I did want to touch higher at this 8 hour inside it. So again, low time frame. We've got a few things. We've got a little 8 hour here that hasn't quite been tested. Now we've got equal highs here, equal highs above there, and then various 2 month supply here, which was a provisional breakdown level I would look at. And then 3-day weekly supply a little bit higher. But again, similar to what I just said with Bitcoin, there's just so much going on that you need to watch for the lower time frames. What we did have on Ether is it made weekly demand. And I actually didn't notice this yesterday. It did come down yesterday and test it. So you can see there's a little wick there into that blue weekly demand zone. So obviously it's pushed up. So on the basis of that, again, I haven't been aggressively shorting. And like obviously this was pushing yesterday. And while I put in that short for Bitcoin, I didn't put in a short for Ether. And again, you know, there's too much of a draw above the price, you know, with equal highs there and equal highs here. So yeah, we'll just see what happens on this. Again, you know, for shorts, I want to see this flip some major demand. You know, now it's made a weekly. The only thing we didn't have is a weekly on. We didn't have a weekly on Korea or CME. CME did make a daily yesterday, and that's what's held the low today. So again, I just want to see a little bit more on this. Maybe we could see. My camera program likes to give me errors when there don't appear to actually be any errors. So I'm just in computer doom, aren't I? Anyway, Korea, interestingly, yeah, it just isn't quite at the weekly supply. So you can see the blue here. It is in 3 months supply because that was lower on Korea, but the weekly is a bit higher. So again, like, you know, maybe when Korea gets to this weekly supply, and we'll see where the US dollar pair is at the same time. But for the moment, obviously the bias is up on this, and you know, it's aggressive longs if you want to long this at resistance. But yeah, for now it's up. If we break down through these demands, flip them to supply, then I'd look for shorts. But yeah, not much more to say on Ether. So on the lower time frame, that was just in case it aligned with the Bitcoin hitting that 5-day demand. On the short side, like I said, so I've reset the alert. It's actually really gone again. I don't think I've got yet another alert in there. Oh, maybe I have. Yeah, no, I've got an alert there. So I've reset the alert for this 8 hour, which got just missed here. Then, as I said, we've got those equal highs there, potentially into daily supply just above, and then 2 months should we like keep running from there. And then below, yeah, that 4-hour demand. And then I think I was considering this level because it's a 61 fib and a naked point of control. But I don't know. Yeah, because at the moment I haven't put anything else on this higher time frame chart. So again, like we're coming off 3-month supply. Obviously, my expectation is we drop through all of this, you know, this makes a lower low from here. Trend line stops underneath. I think if we come down here, we're likely to get quite a lot of momentum. So again, I wouldn't necessarily be knife catching. But yeah, I do have an entry or an alert on that 4-hour demand there. And yeah, I think I just put an alert, that question mark a little bit lower just to something to watch. Again, retest of that 3-month level, possible deviation, and reclaim this support area here. But probably not something I particularly look at, like certainly not for limit orders. So yeah, like I say, my bias remains down on Ether because of 3-month supply. However, we are still in an upward structure, and we're still on weekly demand. We still held weekly demand, so obviously we're potentially at this stage going to push higher into the supply, and with the provisional levels being that 8-hour and then stop pumped into this daily. So again, it's just really tight. So I mean, like, any of these could work, and I say I'm right, but they're the levels or zones I'd watch. You're just watching for a low time frame reaction. So if we come into this 8-hour supply, that's probably lower probability now. But if we come into this, I'll just leave it in there anyway. Then you're looking for, are we going to get a reaction on the hourly or on the 15-minute? Pick your time frame, lower time frame to see. The swing fail is obviously an easier one to do because you wait for it to go above, come back below, make supply retest, and then look for a drop. And then this 2-month I had here for a while just because it was a retest of the old 2-month level, which got taken out and then came back through and closed below, so it could flip to resistance in there, and it does coincide with this red box, which was the area of breakdown of that top consolidation. So that's why I had that as slightly more aggressive. And also I think the 61 fib, or rather 61 fib now, the 61 log fib is kind of between those two zones, so we're kind of just looking around that general area. And then we'll see. But, we are coming off weekly demand now, so be conscious of that. On the majors, so you'll notice here, if you follow me, on the old majors, I've replaced EOS with TRX. So EOS was a really good indicator, even though it wasn't a major for a really long time, but it was a really good top indicator because EOS, and I was joking about it yesterday, like EOS was normally the last to move. So you knew when EOS hit supply or hit demand, maybe not hit demand, but at least from a bull perspective, when EOS hit supply, then the market was probably done because EOS was like one of the late movers. But then since EOS has been rebranded and then suddenly obviously they scrubbed all the history, so now I've kind of lost all my previous analysis and alerts and everything, which normally I copy and paste before they delete, but I didn't get around to this time. So anyway, I've decided to put in TRX. So TRX, the thing is, I don't love it. The problem with TRX is while TRX is very good high time frame, it's very choppy on the low time frames. So it makes it a little bit harder to be as kind of frequent on entries as some of the others. So, these are all the entries I've had just having had it in the alts list previously. I was always quite bullish. I came off annual demand and then in monthly demand here. But again, like since then, it kind of hasn't. So I had an aggressive entry on weekly here. It hasn't come back to test these monthly demands since then. So like my preference would be for this to go all the way back down there. But whether it will or not, but TRX, again, I thought it might be, like, it can be useful, also a useful top signal. So similar to EOS, putting this as a possible top signal. So I'm just checking my stream was okay. Putting this as a possible top signal, because again, because this is one of the most bullish charts there is, when this wants to top, then again, it generally could indicate that it's a market top as a whole, unless there's something TRX specific, which is, I think, rare at the moment. So it's kind of interesting to watch, if this hits supply, if it is going to start to have a big reaction, then maybe the whole market's ready to roll over. So anyway, yeah, so I've added some, a couple of new entries. I've got a 2-week demand entry here, and again, it's a big zone. And across all the majors, I'm not going to go into detail on the majors, but a lot of them I'm very wary of. The main thing I'm wary of is this just being a corrective move. So I've spoken about this a few times before with my brush, that we've had a big retracement and that we're just going to do a corrective move up and then we're going to do another bigger drop down. So that's kind of my concern on all the majors. And then locally similar, that we've got these trend line stops and that we're just going to batter straight through that. So I guess with these more aggressive alerts I'm setting, what I'm hoping is, I guess, that we at least get a bounce, even if we get a bounce to get another move up, or we get just at least a bounce there for then having the short entry later, depending on what new supply is made. So this has been up here long enough that it probably would have made a certainly 5-day supply in there and possibly a weekly supply if we come down into here first. So I just want to see the reactions up here, see what new supply has been made, and then, yeah, just judge it. Now, TRX isn't the best, most reliable short, because obviously it's very bullish. It's still in a weekly bullish structure, still going up. So you know, I had that entry there, which did have a reaction, but again, just come straight back down into daily demand. And then I've got another entry up there for a possibility if it comes up to the next daily supply. And then also there's a 4 hour. So, you know, again, just how much, you know, the 61 fib is kind of up here on the log scale, I believe. So we'll see if this continues. Litecoin. So all the others basically have all just rather annoyingly slightly front run, you know, even my more aggressive alerts. And again, we got one bounce slightly front running, and I was hoping these were going to come back down into it after the drop off that supply, but so far not. But, you know, again, we'll see what happens with this 12-hour supply. If Bitcoin hits this 12-hour supply, then maybe these are going to come down into those zones. So Litecoin, again, same challenge as TRX. I've got that aggressive entry on the daily there, but then I've said, you know, also the other problem is there's so many zones. So here we've got a weekly just down there, that next cross, and a 5-day, 4-day demand. So, you know, is it going to bounce off the daily, or is it going to come down to 4-day and weekly, or is it even going to take out those stops and go down to this lower weekly that hasn't been tested? So again, that's the challenge with all of these. You know, now back up in weekly supply, coming off monthly demand line. I won't go into Litecoin in detail because the structure on this is just hideous anyway. Like even on the high time frames, it hasn't really got anything that I want to kind of, yeah, trade. I mean, it's just in a giant triangle, you know, bouncing between these. So I don't know if we're just going to continue here on the higher time frame. So I won't talk about this in too much detail now, but those are the sort of low time frame or mid time frame areas I'd look at. But to be frank, I'd probably leave this alone because the chances of, you know, Bitcoin falls, this is just going to run through everything. So, and then on the short side, so obviously we had, so again, a lot of alts have this 3-day, 4-day, 5-day supply, then they've got weekly or 2-weekly or 3-weekly, and they're all very variable. This is just sort of consistent across all the alt market. And 5-day supply above, so I've just got that alerted. So again, like, are we going to reject? You know, this is obviously a corrective move down. This is not a strong rejection. Like, you want to see a strong rejection, you've got, you know, something like this, you know, these big impulsive drops. Obviously, this is more of a corrective move. So as a result, I'm not setting new supply alerts. You know, it's too close to demand now. Yeah, then we just want to see what happens when we come up into these next zones. And yeah, the challenge again being is there are large zones, and it's just the overall structure is not easy to judge. It's not working. Button's not working. Hold on one moment, and we shall go and have a look at BCH. I did also have a look at all the what do you call it, the BTC pairs on these, and again, most of them I really don't like at all. Why is this not being nice to me? Similar scenario to Litecoin in the fact that it's come really close to my zone twice. So again, still got the alert set. There's a weekly demand here, there's a 4-day and then a daily inside it. So obviously it can dip deeper into the zone, but the alert is right there. I actually should have hit the alert on this first wick, but for some reason it didn't trigger. And then below that, you know, I kind of provisionally had an alert down here. I think it's an 8-hour demand at the bottom, but now I wouldn't be confident of that if that comes all the way back there. So I'm just going to delete that. What else on this? Yeah, I don't know. Again, just seeing if this weekly demand holds. Again, trend line stops below. So I know a lot of people are still very bullish on this and think this is ready to break out. Maybe it is. You know, I've got to say, like, to be honest, I'm not great at judging. You know, this is a higher time frame one, but the sort of breakout moves. So, for example, it depends. Like, some of them I'm better at, but like here, for example, when it's come down into here, like, I know it's in a weekly demand, but knowing that it's going to batter straight up through that supply is when I find it a little bit harder. Now, in this case, you know, it had tested it a few times first. So that one's a bit easier, so I would know at least not to alert that. But to know, you know, here we've got 3-day supply. I think that's a new 3-day supply in here. There's got a new 3-day supply there to sort of consider whether I want to put a short here. I can find it a little bit harder once it's hit demand. And maybe that's the same for everybody. It's not just hard for me, you know, it's trying to figure out, you know, are the sellers stronger than the buyers? So, you know, in the case of Ripple, obviously we've got a very strong strong move up, so the buyers are strong. But, you know, are the sellers now starting to kick in here? Is this a distribution pattern? Are they getting a corrective move up before falling off a cliff? Or is this a consolidation for a reaccumulation for another significant up move or another wave of this giant move here? Again, find it a little bit harder to judge that. Damn, I shouldn't have changed the time frame. Now we're frozen again. FML. Anyway, at least I haven't really got anybody watching today, so anyone who is watching can like fast forward. Oh, I don't like getting the wait signal, that's not great. And we're back. Yeah, so actually, sorry, of note as well, and we're still holding this yearly level on Ripple, which I've just noticed now with now I've had that pause, and obviously now I've had that pause, I've now got an error on my YouTube. So we might get buffering, but it's just on the vertical one, so I can live with that. Hopefully it'll come back at some stage. Yeah, so anyway, on the weekly perspective, you know, we're still holding these weekly demands. Are we going to get another bigger push off this? Or is it eventually going to just collapse here? Situation uncertain. Now I'm getting another error on the YouTube feed. Anyway, so that's Ripple. Then BCH. So BCH, I have been continuing to look for longs on this, but then I actually kind of reflected on this earlier and kind of thought, I don't know why I'm doing that, because I do know this isn't 3 month supply. But then also, I guess the challenge I've always had on some of these, and particularly on BCH, is that this is a 6 month demand, and then this is a 3 month supply. So we're kind of just stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's a very big supply. So I guess what I'm doing on this is just trying to trade the local uptrend. So weekly demand. So I did actually have an alert for the 2-day demand, and then we created a weekly. So those alerts have gone off today. So again, you know, much as what I just said for Ripple, you know, here we can do, you know, you can do the provisional short entry for the move down to demand, but when you're still holding demand, doing an aggressive short is more risky. So this is now, I was hoping this, this is a 12-hour, 8-hour supply up there. So I was hoping that would hit before we hit demand. But obviously it hasn't happened, but I've left that in for now. And again, that's based on, so we had this big swing failure on the Coinbase chart, the hi real bear. So you can always watch the you can always watch, I'm just typing to you, I don't know why I'm doing that when I can just talk and always watch the replay. Anyway, well, I just typed that and then it didn't. Oh, it's come up on my other YouTube stream. Anyway, there we go. Can always watch the replay. But thank you, I appreciate it. It's nice to have the support. Yeah, so BCH anyway might break out here, but 8-hour supply above. But you know, again, still holding weekly demand. So yeah, we'll see what this gives. But again, yeah, so again, all these are kind of much the same as Bitcoin, is that they're all tentatively making supply, but also all for now are holding these demands and or haven't tested the zones that I wanted. But yeah, anyway, so that gives you kind of some idea. Well, because I didn't finish BCH really, so I mean there is a 12-hour deeper inside here, but again, BCH now I'm starting to be wary of this trend line. There is a weekly demand in there. It did get tested locally, but yeah, because of the trend line stops, I was sort of thinking down here. Just got the comment written there at the moment because of running out of alerts all the time. So yeah, just see what happens on that. And then the new major is kind of pretty much the same. So again, like BNB, while I again really don't like the BTC pair because it made and rejected the 3 month supply, obviously it is still going up here. So again, this is the only one, so I had an aggressive alert on 2-day demand there, which held, and now I have put an aggressive alert in here on 3-day demand. And these are, you know, increasingly risky now. We are in 3 week supply. We've come up into the 2 week, just above the 3 weeks, so it's choppy and messy. But I guess again, until similar to Bitcoin, I'd rather. So the reason I don't put these similarly aggressive alerts on Bitcoin, or I'm less inclined to, is Bitcoin is much more inclined to do giant wicks. So the alts, I would much, in these situations, I'd much prefer to trade the alts because they are less likely to wick you out, unless you're trading something really low liquidity, but they're less likely to wick you out. They, you know, if it's going to hold the demand, it'll hold demand, whereas Bitcoin, you know, in the similar scenario here, might wick down there and then close back up here and then continue. Whereas BNB, in the same vein, is more likely to kind of hold in here. So again, that's why I sort of stick with those. At the moment, I've got an alert on all-time high, you know, if we are going to continue to push up there, and I've got an aggressive alert on 3-day demand. You know, failing that, if this whole consolidation breaks down, I'd be looking a lot lower. Link was one of the ones actually that I was kind of more hopeful on that this 2-day would hold, but again, it's come back into the lower demand. It is holding this 6-month level, so again, I've been bullish on Link, although it took its time and came deep into this zone. You know, it is holding that level on these retests, so that's kind of interesting. But again, I had my alert was slightly lower for 1-week demand here, so again, would just like to see that. So yeah, I guess on all the majors, you know, I'd like to see these do another wave down, but it's now they may not. And I commented on this previously. I think I got stopped out for the same reason when I went against my comment, that once you've done an ABC here, if it hasn't broken demand by the time the C wave happens, to then look for a DE is less common. You might get it. You might get, you know, a 5-wave move down, or 5-wave correction, but it's less common. So at this point, you know, because it's already tested supply, so unless it's made a significant new supply, which in the case of Link, to be fair, it has, it's made a 3-day supply in here, then this is more likely to, you know, if this is going to hold this zone, it's more likely to go up through there. So I'm less inclined, unless we've broken demand or come quite deep in demand and showed much more sign of weakness, to put a more aggressive short and a follow-up short in. So in the case here, you know, we are in 3-day supply, so but it's trying to flip back. So again, just want to see a little bit more on Link, and yeah, so the aggressive alerts on weekly, and then similar to all the others, we've got 5-day, we've got a daily, you know, if we're going to take a bigger dip through. Dogecoin, this entry now is probably particularly high risk, but we'll see. Doggy did come off this 2-month level to historic 2-month and then weekly supply. So again, the optimistic bullish scenario is that we get a bounce in. You know, this can come. You know, this can come lower. So I did have this aggressive alert on 12 hours. It was clean 12-hour demand in there, which obviously got missed just there, but I kind of left it in because why not? So again, just see what the reaction is. Again, just be conscious, like on all of these, again, be conscious of what supply has been created, because it may not be worth taking that. If we then make a 4 or 5-day supply by the time it gets down there, so if it closes below this blue line today, it's going to have a 4-day supply. And then you may not want to, you know, it's up to you if you then, but you know, like maybe you would take, my brush isn't working now, but God. Oh, 2 lines now. Yeah, so if this comes back down into there and there's a 4-day supply, you know, then that might happen, and you may not want to, like, again, you just need to see, you know, what your entry is like and what risk to reward you can get. So that's, you know, if you blindly, it would be risky now, but if you blindly traded, you know, on this 12-hour demand with your stop below 12-hour demand, and then where was that 4-day? So the 4-day being there, if the 4-day flips to supply, so then that should probably be your take profit. Then it's only 1.9R, so you may not want to do that unless you can get a tighter entry here. Or, you know, again, you can hope that this is going to go higher, and then you just put your stop to break even once it's hit the 4-day, or take a hedge. So there's kind of options. It just, and I would tend not to comment too much on these things because it just depends how you trade. But for now, anyway, it's got a 2-day supply and it's rejecting off that, so I still went lower on this. And then, you know, when all these majors kind of are going to hit this next zone, which is just below the recent low, then I'll just sort of see what happens. And if they're all just going to barrel through, you know, they're either all going to hold or they're all going to break. One of the two. So, And again, like just for those who are in the premium group and have access to these charts, just be conscious of the timing. You know, like if one hits before the others, then it's likely that one might go either go deep or break before the others get there. And then finally ADA. So again, ADA's also made a 3-day supply in here, but it's still trying to push a little bit inside. It's a weak 3-day supply. It's come off 4-day demand or 5-day demand down there at the arrow, but again, just missed my alert for weekly. So, and holding 6 months at the lows. So weekly demand there, weekly demand below, daily at the base. So as you can see on all the majors, you know, that we've got this sort of choppy, is it going to wick through? And yeah, again, just to reiterate what I did say before, is there is a chance that these come through, that having now done, just go to a lower time frame, but having now done a 5-wave structure, that we get a retrace of this whole move. So again, that those lower zones might come into play when you're looking at these 5-wave structures. You're looking at, okay, that's the last wave, that's the retest, and then we're getting the move down. So it's possible that has kind of already happened. Makes these entries more risky. But we'll just see what happens when we get there. And again, so the majors I've looked at here, so ADA, DOGE, Link, and BNB are, I think all the BTC pairs except for Dogecoin, or all the BTC pairs still look pretty shitty. But all of the US dollar pairs are coming off high time frame demand. So while we've still got some high time frame supply in there, we've got higher time frame demand. So I remain for now cautiously bullish on the very, very macro on these this set of new majors. My computer unfreezes, we can go on to massive short entry on 2-day supply in there, which is just before that. The main reason for that, okay, could be holding a flip of this 3-month level, but it's a 3-month supply level, so I don't love it. But yeah, this is kind of the only one, again, might just be holding those wicks as support, but it's the only one that's kind of quite far from demand. So while I've shown the others are kind of all sort of similar to here, near, and well, Atom's a little bit further away, but some of the others are quite close to demand. DOT was kind of one of the ones that was furthest away, so I thought, well, and it's also one of the ones that hasn't tested this 2-day supply. I think there's a 3-day, could go into up a little bit into the 3-day as well in there. But so I thought if I was going to look for a short on any of them, that would kind of be the one to potentially then look back in this weekly demand. I need to reset that alert there. Oops. So again, 3-month supply here, like it's a huge zone. You can see the giant brown zone, but you know, like have to be short bias on the very macro, but that doesn't mean it's not going to go up in the interim. So again, still got that weekly uptrend. And it's just a question of, you know, is this going to retrace the whole drop, or is it going to retrace just a small portion of it before going for that new low? But I am bearish on this still. But yeah, so weekly, 1 week, 3-week demand that I put the comment there coming from 3-month supply. So obviously that's a risk. But yeah, you can see if this gets a reaction here. So I kind of, again, like I've broken my rule of the 1 to ABC, you know, I'm going for a DE, but the reason for it is it hasn't quite hit support in there. So that is DOT. Sol. So Sol, you know, I was originally looking at weekly supply here for a short, but I was kind of conscious of this Trump pump going through it and the double top there. So obviously we did take that out. Then there was also a monthly supply a little bit above, and again the wick has just come just short of that. So I've reset the alert, you know, if it comes back there. So again, overarchingly, this is in a 3-month supply and it's coming up to hitting the monthly inside it. So again, I might then be much more short bias on this. It is, so this is holding a monthly uptrend. It is holding monthly demand at the lows. So again, it's that kind of high time frame indecision, a bit like Litecoin. And then similarly here, you know, we've got 4-day, 5-day. So it's actually made a 5-day demand up at the current price. Then we've got 5-day weekly demand there. And then we've got a weekly demand below and a 3-day, which I had alerted ages ago and it just didn't want to hit. I don't love this zone, and the fact we're coming out of monthly supply made me more inclined to be lower on this, look for lower entries. But again, yeah, could well get a bounce here at the kind of 150 mark, but you know, my preference would be that's a bit of a cleaner zone than this weekly. And then maybe I'll get a bounce off the weekly in here. I'll just see. But I don't like some of them. I like just to kind of spread them around, because if we do get a wick through, then at least we get the, because a lot of these I don't necessarily trade them, but I use them as indicators for the market as a whole. Like when all of these hit support or when they all hit supply, then the market as a whole can look at changing, because they don't generally do their own thing. Need to figure out how to get this to fade. Just realised the on the screen we've got the chat is supposed to fade out after 30 seconds. I remember from the previous my audio streaming bitrate is too low. That's a new one. Anyway, yeah, so these chat comments used to fade out previously, but now they don't appear to be fading out. They just stay on the screen, which is not great when you've got somebody who's promoted something, streamboo.com, whatever that is. Anyway, it is what it is. I'll have to deal with that later. Yeah, so I've reset the alert for monthly supply. If we come up a little bit higher in it, again, there's plenty of zones higher up that it could go to if it wants to. Again, that's a waste of an alert, so let me just delete that one. But yeah, so plenty of zones inside if it's going to come up higher. Actually delete or not? Physically delete it. And again, similarly, you know, just a lot of chop if we're going to come down. And the other problem is when we do have this chop, so you can see here, is that it then comes through all of it. So what you would have found, like at this point, for example, like we had the initial demand, which did get a couple of good bounces off it. Then we've had another demand, then it's had another demand, then it's had another demand. And to be fair, like in this case, maybe they've all already been tested. They certainly have on the 2-day. But what you then find is when we do come back through, we just come through everything. And that's, I guess, my concern, and why I still look for more aggressive short entries. You know, that when we've got too many options, then sometimes you can find we just go straight back through everything. But again, you can see here the 61 fib is around that 3-day and the weekly level there. So the zone that's worth watching, should we get there, being conscious it's coming off monthly supply. NERA is the one that's sort of the more potentially bullish one of all of these. You know, it did hit 3-month demand at the low there, but it obviously didn't have a very big follow-up off that. Anyway, yeah, so again, 3-week demand, new 3-week demand below. Yeah, so a new 3-week demand below and a weekly inside it. So I've got the alert there with and there's a 2-day and a daily. So again, exactly the same scenario as everything else. Lots of chop, lots of different possible zones that it could bounce on. For the moment now in 2-day supply. So again, but also this is one of the few that's made a daily demand. So again, this might push from here. And you know, just front line my level because that's the way life goes. But we'll see. And finally, Atom. So Atom, as you know, I'm just always overarchingly bearish on Atom, but it just causes me a lot of physical pain. You know, it's also in 3-month supply for ages. You know, I wanted to take out these highs. It didn't, so I then became short biased because we come off 3-month supply, but then obviously it decided to then go and take out those highs. However, didn't quite hit my 5-day or the 2-week. So there's a 5-day, then there's a weekly, and then there's monthly zones in here. So again, a lot of chop. Hard to know exactly where it might stop if it goes up there. But for now, also, I think this has made a 4-day supply in there. Yeah, so that's made a 4-day supply. So again, would like to see this drop down into that weekly zone. Noting there is a 6-month, so there's this sort of 6-month level there that again may be picking up as support. So I guess what a lot of these come down to is, you know, do you believe it's all season? So, you know, I have seen a few people put posts of the, I don't know if I got access to it, and I won't be able to find it now anyway, but you know, the all season chart where you've got the line where above there, I think in here is all season, and then above here is all season's over, and like below here is Bitcoin season. I forget which way around it is anyway. Maybe alt season's about to start, but anyway, the sort of price is coming down, or not the price, but the it's a sentiment indicator. So I don't know how good it is on TA anyway, and I think when I saw the post that somebody put it on Twitter about it, I was like, this is not a good indicator or a good chart, even if it's not a price chart. But I think, whatever it was doing, it was coming down here, so maybe that must be alt season, or maybe they think it's going to go up now and it's going to bounce in there. But again, I was quite skeptical. But I did have a look at others. Let's just have a look at these market cap charts quickly. So again, so total obviously is predominantly Bitcoin. So it's, obviously it has to nowhere near breaking all-time high like Bitcoin. However, it's in monthly supply, and it's also got 5-day demand in there that it's holding. So again, nothing really different to Bitcoin, just other than that a bit lower structurally, because alts are obviously weaker. Alts haven't made new all-time highs. Total 2 obviously more like Ether. This hadn't made the new weekly demand that Ether's made, but it was very close to it. Has now made a 3-day demand, so again, possibly this is going to get a push up into monthly supply up there. So again, that might give credence to Ether going a bit higher in the zone, or at least going up a bit more and taking out those previous highs. I'm not sure. Well, it seems to be coming down now. Total 3, which is obviously excluding the top 10. Total 3 is excluding BTC and Ether. So it's more focused on the majors, so like Ripple, etc. So again, yeah, we're already up in monthly supply on this. So I guess and yeah, so we'll just get to others and then I'll make the comment. So, and then others obviously is in daily supply, and I was, as I've said, in that circle, I was kind of thinking maybe we'd get more of a push on this. So I guess if we've had the Bitcoin move, thus totals up in monthly supply, we've now had the Ether move, or we've got a bit more to go. We're going to get a bit more Ether maybe into monthly supply, and majors already in monthly supply, so maybe Ether's a bit of a lagger, I don't know. Or again, this could move up higher. Maybe we get a bit more sideways on majors while we get an Ether move, and then also some more of the alts. So the alts are again quite mixed. I'll get to that in a minute, actually. I do want to do a bit on the end of this stream about alts, but this is in daily supply, so again, but then it's clinging on. So while again I would like the retest down here, it doesn't have to give me it. We are seeing some alts break out from here, and we're seeing, but predominantly we're seeing most go sideways. Because again, the alt market's great, I have to say. It's a real mix, again, which I much prefer to these big green candles or the big red candles. I like to be able to trade both directions. So this has been really nice, and we've moved more to scalp entries. I put some more aggressive entries, and there would have been take profit quickly kind of entries, both on the short and long side. And then so in contrast, we have some alts have just died from here, particularly ones that have hit monthly supplies. Others are consolidating like this and still pushing. A couple of like TRB and MYRIA, I think, sort of outliers, like yesterday just went up a lot. But predominantly we're getting a lot of sideways movement either in this kind of area, or for the ones that have dropped lower in this kind of area. And some of those maybe are going to break up. So these are the ones I'm looking at. To see if we're going to get the breakups from the ones that have tested either. It's probably exaggerated with that down there, but at least the ones that have tested either in here or in here. But for now, what I'm seeing is that things have come down into this weekly demand. I've had a lot of alerts go from those. They've bounced, and a lot of them are now rejecting this sort of 3-day, 2-day supply kind of area. So again, we'll see. Another frozen chart. Just really hope this stream's running okay. At least somebody came in and said hi once. Hi, all real ice bear. I don't know if you're still there, but if you are, I assume you would have let me know if the stream wasn't running properly, or you can't hear me properly or anything. Anyway, let's undo some of that mess. Okay, so moving on then quickly to alts, because I've been going 55 minutes. So as I said, I've had a lot of alerts coming, in both directions. A lot of wicks. These are some of the ones that are coming today. So we've got a sort of mix. I've been looking at a few of these sort of new coins / MEXC coins, you know, that are still very much in downtrends. But, you know, again, if the market is going to hold, if we are going to go into all season, like so many seem to think, but I will disclaimer that with everybody seems to think that anytime they see a green candle. So I have yet to find somebody that is can validly say, oh no, frozen. No, I'm back. Yeah, so I've yet to find somebody who can validly say that alt season is going to happen, rather than just saying alt season is going to happen on every green rally. But anyway, I have been watching some of these. You know, some of these I put some aggressive entries such as this. You know, it's still very much in a downtrend, but could, you know, if it's made a daily demand, possible it picks up daily demand. The first daily demand in this case. Then, for example, HAEDAL, again, it's just in a very much in a sideways consolidation. This one I put in an aggressive long entry on 12-hour demand that's just gone off. High risk, and it depends a lot on what Bitcoin's doing, which I feel like Bitcoin's falling at the moment because what I'm seeing coming through here. So that's just come in since I've been doing this stream. JELLYJELLY, 3-day supply, that would have been quite a nice entry, might have been too quick to get, I don't know. That sort of came in 40 minutes ago. So again, just trying to get some of the aggressive in both directions, because if we are going to fall off a cliff, we have some decent falls that could happen. Alternatively, you know, maybe we're still going to get the mix where some are going up and some are going down. So it's still trying to get, you know, we've broken supply here, we haven't gone into the next supply, it's made a new demand, maybe it's going to give another wave. OIK, yeah, went through my 12-hour supply there again. This was a one I was watching for ages and took a fucking decade to move. It's just taken a wick through that 12-hour supply, which is not really surprising. Yeah, so anyway, so alts I'm going to run through. I'm not going to go through, so obviously I've been doing my sections in the list, and now this is insanely long. Section 2, section 3, where does that start? Section 3, and this was maybe a week and a half ago, so obviously it's insanely long now. I've had loads of alerts since then. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but I will go through some just to be able to discuss the structures. So Oiko just talked about, you know, again, and it's the indecision that I told you about before. So, you know, obviously in a perfect world, we get an entry down in here. Ignoring the fact that this is potentially a giant monthly supply, but in a perfect world, we get a retest on data on weekly demand in there, and then we get a nice move up. That would be perfect. However, you know, a lot of these, you know, are just forming these triangles, or potentially going to form triangles, and then we see which are going to break up one way or the other. You know, OIK isn't the best example here because obviously it's a very messy, weird structure, and it's probably quite low volume. I'm not sure if it's on just on MEXC, I've got a feeling. MEXC, KSX and weeks, so yeah, it's particularly low volume one. So you know, again, might hold in this daily, sorry, 12-hour demand down there. But we need to see. But yeah, this is not the best example for a structure to look at. PUNDIX is kind of an interesting one. Like I was looking at this did make a 2-month demand in here. Obviously it's got this giant green candle, so it's another one that yet again could come all the way back to the low if it wants to. It's not a good 2-month demand, but some of them can get that instant reaction. You see the 2-month here, it's closed above. It's a weak 2-month because it didn't close significantly above, and it's also coming straight out of supply. So I did have the aggressive alert off the top just to see what reaction we got, and held here for a while, but just didn't really do much. And then now there's just trading the up down. I had an alert go for a 4-hour demand here yesterday, and it didn't quite hit, so I've reset that alert, and then I also set an alert for daily supply just on the basis that we're having just some nice slow movements at the moment. And then again, I was considering the possibility of a short up here, but because of the 2-month demand, I'm less confident of that. But I want to see what reaction, if we get down as this 4-hour demand, what reaction I get there first, and or how quickly it may or may come up through supply. So that's PUNDIX, Buzz. Yeah, okay, so Buzz is indicative of a lot of these sort of consolidations at the lows alts. And I don't know if they're all MEXC or if they're just, I have a feeling this is actually on other watch lists. Only everything wasn't so slow to load. I can't even, I just don't have the patience for this, the slowness. Yeah, so this is only MEXC, although it is on quite a few exchanges in spot. But either way, okay, now it's stuck on the screen. Anyway, yeah, so we're getting quite a lot that are consolidating through the lows. Let's wait till this disappears and I can actually show you. So again, like some of them I've been, oh God, setting long entries and they've been working quite well. So again, this, I've had a long there, I had a long here, it came a little bit deeper in the zone, but I think this was a 3-week zone there. I had a more aggressive long off 3-week demand at the top there, which obviously only went as far as supply, and now we're down at a daily inside. So this is, slightly more risky now because we're not, here we made a higher low, and there we made a higher low, and there we made a higher low, or higher high followed by a high low, but here we haven't made a higher high. So these longs are then more risky, so it is possible now that that happens. And that's, my concern. However, again, I'm trying to go like, while structures and patterns are on my list of things to look at, my major thing, actually that didn't create 3-week demand, that might next week. My major thing to look at is supply and demand. So again, while this is choppy, we do have weekly demand, we made a new weekly demand. So I'm still in an up bias on this, whilst being conscious that we have trend line stops and a lower high. So I guess we'll see. If this creates, so again, we just need to be conscious of what new supply is created. So this needs to bounce quick today. If it does create a 2-day supply, then that would be something I would just say get out of. We've got 10 hours to go. I'll draw that in for now anyway. But yeah, if that's created today, then I would just say get out and give it some more time. But it's a question of, are these ones that have got a lot of sideways movement through here? Is this just accumulation ready to break up? Or is it accumulation ready to break down further? Is it just have we just got a sideways with a weak correction followed by another down move? So again, like I say, I'm just keeping an eye on these and I'm trying to get the early entries, but they are still fairly risky entries. RIZ had a really nice move up, and then straight up into 3-day supply. So I had the initial alert for 3-day supply. I then tried for a lower high entry here, but it was I think it was a 4-hour supply in there. No, it wasn't. Maybe even an hourly, 2-hourly supply in here. But yeah, a little bit too aggressive. So again, just again from a learning perspective about the structures, what it's made an hourly demand, it's come back, so that is still an uptrend. So while you can look for a short entry here, and in some cases they'll work, particularly if they're coming off something decent at the high, my messages, then it's worth looking. But you've got to again be aware that you're in an uptrend at this point, and even now, so we've come down into here, we're still in an uptrend. So I had an alert here earlier, mainly because I wanted to watch what happens when we hit that 8-hour demand. But obviously it hit quite a few times just above. So then, and I said that I was conscious that, it probably was going to take these trend line stops. And obviously then it threw a wick straight through all of those. And again, I remain indecisive on this. It's still in this range, holding hourly demand. That you're holding the range. It's come down to here and it's been unable to make a significantly higher high, and now it's come down. In fact, it's even taken out the stops there. So it is possible that this, wants to make another move up. But again, I put another potentially aggressive short here. Don't love it. I think I put that in the alert. 12-hour supply. I did take trend line stops below. We still need to monitor. So like some of them I'm just putting in for monitoring purposes. Just to see what the reaction is. Structure is still telling me this is not a high probability short, but I think it's still worth watching. And then failing that up here, possibly that already had a wick into testing this 4-hour, but we'll see. But yeah, again, would be nice to get a decent drop on this back into demand to get a long entry, but it doesn't necessarily have to give it, so we'll see. B3. So that had a nice move up, again, just a short entry on 4-5 day supply in there that came through this morning, so it's come up into 5-day supply. So again, worth this one. So something like this, I'd be more inclined to look for short ones. Obviously, it's had an initial reaction off the 2-week. It's dropped down. It's now come up higher in 2-week, taken out the top of the 2-week actually into weekly supply there. So I can actually delete that. And then, you know, it's dropped down again. It hasn't broken this low, so you know, arguably we're still holding some sort of demand in here from the left. But if the bigger trend is still down, that's kind of what I'm looking for. And I do have, you know, an alert here on 5-day demand at the lows. You know, a lot of these are very, you know, obviously they're very new coins. So B3, and again, there's B3 just on MEXC. I like to just do the MEXC coins because I know not everybody trades on this, and MEXC has just a vast amount of shit coins. Now even that's not loading for me. So, you know, these are very new coins. You know, I don't know if you can even really count that up move. It's certainly not really a decent up move, but let's just say we start from kind of here, slightly off, just that orange line perhaps, you know, really it's just a sideways range. So, and I don't like to be perpetually bullish because also actually these go down a lot more than they can go up when they want to. Again, just a sideways away, so like again, just a drop at the moment, but really in a downtrend. So up, retrace, new low, retrace, new low, retrace, etc. is kind of what we would expect at this point, unless we see this hold, and then you might say, okay, low retrace, higher low, and then we're going to go back up. But we still need to see that hold first. So yeah, again, my bias is still down, so that's that. Mask is another way. I got a really nice entry on this, on that first move. 12-hour supply, and I think weekly supply in there, if it wants to load the pictures for me. And then I look for, again, another short re-entry on retest, and obviously it's gone through and taken out the high. So again, that's sort of similar to RIZ, like it did break demand, but it is what it is. So a lot of momentum going up on that move up throughout most of May. This is very annoying. Ugh, come on. Thank you. Anyway, yeah, so nice entry on the initial hit of this 12-hour, and then I sort of commented there was also a 3-week supply in there as well. So it's gone up into 3-week supply, but obviously then, so we had that initial drop, then I looked for a more aggressive short entry off that daily in there, which didn't really give very much. And then again, there was an hourly untested at the top here. So it was worth looking for a short there as well. So it's obviously come up and taken out the high now, but there is no reason it won't still drop from here. Like my next alert is up here, you know, if it does want to run through here. But, you know, it did have a significant drop. Gone too low time frame, too high time frame now, but obviously that was a really major drop there. I'm not sure why that happened. If that had a reason. Is that a delisting or something crazy? Or did the whole market just drop in April? I feel like there was such a very dramatic drop, and it looks like a delisting drop. So I don't know if maybe Binance futures, yeah, it's only on. No, it's still on Binance futures, so I don't know, but maybe there was something bad that happened there anyway. But yeah, so we'll see. So this is coming back up now. That does have. I mean, I suppose it was a hit into 3-month supply at that point in time, actually. So maybe it just took the wick into 3-month supply and then really just reacted strongly straight off that immediate test of 3-month supply. So I did see that on a few things. So it's looking like it's going to create a 4-hour demand down there. Might create, sorry, 4-day, and it might create a 2-day. So I've got the 4-day, maybe I've already drawn them, maybe it's a 5-day. So there's, no, it's not confirmed yet, but I've already drawn that in. So that pink is not confirmed demand, but then it also might create a 2-day in there today if it holds. So again, still holding the uptrend, but we'll see. I'm not inclined to look for longs on this when it's right in supply like this here. So I'd rather see a little bit more of what it does, and also a retest. It might just retest in here, like it doesn't have to come all the way down to the base, but we'll see. SPX. Yeah, so okay, so this was one of the few actually that rejected so it hit monthly supply on this first entry, that first test there. Came back down, and then I looked for the re-entry short here. And obviously, again, like I say, I didn't want to make a lower high at this point, so it has come up higher and it's come up to the weekly supply inside it. And this was the challenge I had on a lot of these, that most of them, you know, did get a reaction off these monthly supply levels or monthly 2 month. This is an offset one. It's not ideal, so that's actually not the cleanest one, but most of them are getting reactions off these monthly 2 monthly levels. And then they're coming back down into demand, and then we're now seeing the next push, but not many have actually gone through this level yet. Like, most of them are still at this point below these zones. Another error on my camera. This whole computer is just a shit show. Anyway, so I have set an alert here on weekly demand, but again, it's aggressive alert. We are on monthly supply. We're coming off weekly supply up at the high up there. Go back to the weekly, but again, you know, could decent move there, so could get another drop back into there in order to go higher. Failing that, there's another weekly demand below. Like, this is uncommon of a lot of what I'm seeing on the structures. Like, this is probably one of the stronger ones. Maybe because it's SPX and it's just trying to emulate SPX. Not sure if the rest of it's really emulating it, but anyway. Another frozen scenario. Need to start singing for entertainment while the computer's in frozen mode. But I will move back to Chrome, because even Chrome was better than this, quite frankly. At least it didn't. Yeah, so you can see, actually, you probably can't see it. It says at the top of the screen now, workspace not responding, which is great. I'm trying to get used to all this workspace business in Edge rather than Chrome. HIFI. Okay, this hasn't loaded my my drawings. So yeah, this did make a 2 week supply right at current price, so I just put in an aggressive alert for a possible short off that today. So yeah, you can just see now if this wants to break down from here. Has got a daily demand below, so you know, if you get in this move, it stops break even quite as soon as it hits the daily demand. But just see now if this, because you know, if this 2 week does play out. So what we can find sometimes, so let me just hide the drawing so you can see. So you can see it's closed right below. You can get an instant test here, and then it just drops like a stone. So it is worth watching those instant retests to see if they can have really big moves. So you can see here, for example, in the flip, there was a 2 week demand. This did actually take a wick a bit deeper inside it, but next candle come back to test it, and then it had, you know, a month of up thereafter. Similar here, you know, 2 week supply, it closed only slightly below. It did drop more first, to be fair, in this case, so not best examples here, but you can get a test sometimes here and it just drops. So that's why that was kind of worth watching. The other thing also to consider, sorry, I haven't talked about this yet, is, are things going to create monthly supply? So I'm going to assume this is, because we have 3 days remaining, and we are now seeing some things looking like they might create either monthly supply or monthly demand. So sorry, I just made that brown, but it ignored me. It's just ignoring me. So anyway, like, yeah, so if this creates a monthly supply, then I'll certainly be looking for a short should we get all the way back up there, and we'll still be inside that 2 weekly. So, you know, this could still be a double bottom. It's a week, 2 weekly supply. Like, preferably it would have closed further below here before testing. But because you can get some good reactions immediately off the zone, and because I'm seeing a lot of kind of sideways stuff going on, again, it was worth the more aggressive potential short there. Yeah, anyway, so that's that 2 month brown zone up there. Should it come back up there and confirm that as a 2 month? Milk I talked about a minute ago, so yeah, this is just one of the ones, again, that's in a daily downtrend, but made a daily demand, so worth watching to see if it was going to hold for a higher low here. Not a high probability long, but it is a clean demand. So uni, when I looked at yesterday, actually, I kind of realised that I think the middle of the alphabet, I think it was like, I keep going, where are all my alerts? Like, I've got 800 alerts that I keep running out. And then I ended up looking randomly at, I think, Jasmine and Joe and some of the J's and things in the middle of the alphabet, and found that the alerts are miles away. So I need to go through the middle of the alphabet and get rid of some of the alerts, because, you know, some of them, for example, when we were down here, didn't hit zones here. So I've got alerts left, these kind of lower levels, that may hit, but at the moment are just wasting alerts when I want to have things more aggressively close to price. So anyway, uni is another challenging one, coming off 3 months demand, 3 month there and then a 3 month below, which obviously it came deeper inside, and then 3 week monthly at the base here, but it's just come up and hit 3 months supply. So again, because of the hit on 3 month supply, worth looking for the more aggressive short entry. So yeah, went for daily supply alert there. It's got a bit of a reaction off it so far. And then I've got an alert set here for weekly demand. It's not ideal because of the green candle coming all the way through it, but again, mixed results on these. It could come back here, take out the low, hold A, B, C, and then go for more up. Alternatively, and again, like the bigger difficulty, alternatively, we're going to see macro structures. You know, we've got an up move, a retracement, a correction. Are we going to see this just come down and break the low? Which we have seen on a couple of things like XEM, for example, just looks like hell. 3 month supply in here, so I just don't know. Are we going to get a reaction immediately off the level? Are we going to go a lot higher in the zone? You know, again, that's that structure. So we've got 3 month supply here. This is just a consolidation. That's a retest of 3 month supply there. So this is potentially a bigger picture. Just draw it, a bigger picture downtrend. Or is it going to, or is it, you know, I mean, at least overarchingly, it's just a big range. So this could go down here, or it could have just held here, and we just get some sideways back through here. So the higher time frame zones are certainly worth watching. But when you get a lot of consolidation before they hit, given their ranging zones, they're not necessarily strong. So this is a ranging 3 month supply and a very large one. So it's hard to know if it's just going to go higher inside it. And I just need to see more really in trade zones as and when they hit. So this is a daily supply. It's potentially going to make a new daily demand there. It's got a 2 day below. So, you know, if you're bullish on uni, there's no reason you can't look for longs in this section. I prefer to look for them down here. SHN was another one that hit today. It's a little bit like milk, I think. You know, I had this hitting daily demand, 2 day demand. There's 2 day demand in there, and it's come down kind of deeper inside it, but drawing's not showing up right now. But again, you're just hit and hope, you know, like it's in a downtrend. It's retested the supply. The overall structure, if it showed me my pictures, the overall structure is potentially. So again, just this is an optimistic. Is it going to give a bounce? Paintbrush have disappeared again. Is it going to give a bounce in this 2 day zone and then give another move up? You know, is it going to reverse the trend? I don't know. But I like to throw the alerts in just to see. This one's obviously drifting a little bit deeper in the zone. It's got a 12-hour supply above. So then, and then, you know, again, the other challenge is, you know, do you look for a short back in here if it comes up for a retest? And I think in a lot of cases we can do that right now because we are just in these sort of sideways ranges, and really the sellers are still much stronger here. It's just you're guessing at the possibility of a reversal at this point. So to look for shorts here isn't necessarily that much of a problem for another move down. But really, ideally, you'd want it to break demand first and then have that test. That would make it a strong supply. TRB and MYRIA, like I said, so these had big moves up. So TRB wasn't an annual demand. Obviously came significantly deeper down inside it and was a hard one to get in. You know, I was trying, and so I had the alert initially on annual demand, and then I think I wanted it down here, but I didn't get it before the move up. This is now just stopped just short of 2 months supply. Made a weekly demand, tested the weekly demand. So, and like I say, this is the challenge. So like some of these, as I was saying before, you can see. So in this case, you know, it had a daily supply here. It tested this weekly. It did wick up into this daily and then came back down, but held for the higher low. So that's kind of what you want to see, but you want to see these zones tested. Like in contrast here, this just went straight back up through the zones. But it's like when things are ready to reverse, then you start to see supply hold. And so in this case, obviously supply held, but then it came back down into 12-hour demand before the big move up. But to know when things are going to break out like this to this extent, you know, I do find extremely hard. Anyway, we now hit monthly or just short of 2 monthly supplies, so I'm just going to keep an eye on that because obviously it want a potentially bigger move down, but it just might be a little bit early. I don't know. It's got a 2-hour supply in there already, but if you think the market's ready to drop, then you can maybe look for an aggressive short on that. And then on the long side, potentially going to create a 2-day demand there. 4-day maybe a little bit higher. Just want to see what the reaction is when it gets down there. MYRIA, sort of similar, like nowhere near as aggressive actually as KRB. This, obviously broke all-time low, so this is a test of the broken all-time low. Few alerts coming in now. Is Bitcoin really jumping? Check. No, not massively. Well, Ether's down a bit, but it's kind of dumping a bit. So Ether's holding a bit better, but Bitcoin's coming down a bit harder. Yeah, I guess that's why. So I'm just actually, you can't really see them because they're underneath my picture, but I'm getting a few since I've been on the stream. I've got Hosik over some of my aggressive. So I set a bunch of aggressive demand alerts this morning, which I said was probably risky if Bitcoin's going to dump. But Hosiko 4-hour demand, Anime 1-day demand, and Sign 12-hour demands have just hit since I've been talking. Yeah, so in the case of MYRIA, this is a retest of the supply that broke all-time low. So again, decent zone to look for shorts. It's got a 2-week a little bit higher, I think, than where the alert I think was just under for the 5-day. Again, because of the mess of there's a 5-day supply in there, so it's come up close to that 2-week level, but not quite hit it. Interesting. So it does have no. So it had a weekly demand, but it kind of wicked through it, and then it's come back higher. Yeah, I just want to see the reaction here. So something like this, yeah, it might get a bounce on this 4-day below, but given it's broken all-time low, I'd be more inclined to think this is just going to continue going down. And again, it's just a question of timing. So this is a nice example, actually, because I guess here, here's a bit different because it did hit demand, but doesn't ignore that. But, it comes down and it finds a support and it bounces. And here, it's got 1, 2, 3 waves, then it comes back. And this is actually what I said earlier, that maybe these are going to come back and take out that first zone, but not make a lower low at this point. So similar to here, it gets a little bounce on that initial zone, comes back for a higher low, but takes out lows, and then gets another move. So, maybe this is going to come into here and then get another move. And that's kind of what I'm thinking. But then again, overarchingly, this is still corrective broadening wedge drop. Maybe not broadening wedge, whatever you want to call it, bear flag / broadening wedge drop. But it just might be that this is too early. So to assume that we're going to go from here, I'm sure. It's going to need Bitcoin to dump for that to be the case. Yeah, so on something like this, I don't know, I think I'd probably be less inclined to put a short entry there, but I'll put a note for it rather than put the alert in and just see what happens when it gets down there, if it gets down there. And it's got monthly supply higher if it wants to go higher. Gorilla, again, this was an aggressive short. It's come through the zone now, which doesn't really surprise me too much. So it's, again, similar to structures I've talked about previously. It's got 4-hour demand. It's come back, it's tested the 4-hour demand. Possibility of it rejecting there and going a bit lower. So, again, this did give a reaction off there, but not for the lower low. Again, just because it was in a 5-day, overarching 5-day, 4 or 5-day supply out there, I figured that was worth an eye. Now it has 12-hour demand in here, so yeah, I'm not looking for shorts on that at the moment until I see some supply flip to demand. Sorry, demand flip to supply. In another hour and 37 minutes, going to potentially have an 8-hour there. So if Bitcoin holds this, I think you could potentially look for longs on. So I need to keep an eye on that for later, I think. PEPU, wow, that's nice. So this is a really nice example of something you can just trade up and down. So I had a long entry here. I think this was let's go to the daily. I believe that's daily demand. No, not daily demand. 12-hour demand, so I think it bounced a little bit higher. Maybe that was a 12-hour, maybe it was a 3-day. No, I don't know. It's hard to remember what zones I put in, but I had an alert here for, I think, the 12-hour demand. Then I put an alert for 12-hour supply, then I put an alert for 3-day demand, then I put an alert for daily supply, and then now it's come all the way back through it. And as I said, you know, this was a risky one because this is an A, B, C, D, E. Sorry, A, B, C, D, E. But if we're in a downtrend, that's what you're going to get. It's just if you're bullish, then an A, B, C is more common, and then consolidate and up. But again, something like this, again, it's in that bigger downtrend. It's coming off weekly supply, bigger downtrend, weekly supply. I'm not drawing this very well at all. Like that. You know, and a decent drop off here, so to expect another drop off here, and being in a weekly supply is reasonable. And again, like something like this, you know, if you want to try and pick up a long off 12-hour demand at the bottom. Hi, Aussie man. And then feel free. But yeah, really nice to just trade things in both directions. ZBCN had a really nice breakout. So I had an alert go for breaking all-time high. It was a bit of a mofo and didn't come back for any of my re-entries throughout. I was really bullish on this through here, and then that last wick just threw me off, and I got annoyed and stopped looking at it because I was like, when is this thing ever going to break out? And then it broke out, obviously, because the market hates me. Anyway, 12-hour demand in here, so we can just see if this keeps going. I don't know, I tend to have this great master, like other people are really good at kind of getting in these late and then holding them while they go, you know, 15 times higher here. But for me, tends to be every time I try and get an aggressive entry like this, it's like decided it's over. So, you know, it'll bounce back up to here and then just die forever. So, yeah, it's up to you what you do with that. We'll see. White was another one I was being slightly aggressive on. So similar to, like, this, I know it's different, but again, some of the structures, so I talked about those two structures, that we had ones where they're coming down and they're consolidating here, and I don't know if they're going to go back up. Then we've got some like this, which are consolidating through here. And so this obviously is the latter. And so yeah, I've again just been slightly more aggressive on this. So again, 2-week demand in here. It's got a 12-hour supply that it's coming into now, so I wouldn't be jumping in this right now, but again, just something to watch, because I think it might be a harder one to get into, but the bigger picture of this, you know, at least to potentially get up here, if not just break out. But it's pretty nice. Quite like that chart. WCT is another breakout one. It hasn't, unfortunately, like ZBCN, it hasn't, like, I've got an alert down here that didn't get tested from before on 12-hour demand. Maybe it'll create a 4-day there. If it creates that 4-day, I'll bring the alert up and just see how it ends today. I did put an alert for a possible short, so I had the alert go for all-time high, but there was no structure here to either look for shorts or longs. I did put an alert for 4-hour supply here, but however, I said if it confirmed, and it hasn't confirmed. So I should probably remove that on that basis. It came up, was considering this 2-hour above, but it already closed, it already wicked into it on that entry. And again, like the structure here, it hasn't got decent demand. Like that's the demand. That's obviously the hourly demand, you know, that it obviously hasn't closed significantly above there, so it's not the best demand, which is why I haven't got it marked in at the moment. But yeah, I wanted a bit more on this to look for short. I mean, yeah, you need to go for a much lower time frame. So yeah, this is really your proper demand there. 15-minute that you can see held on this test. So yeah, that was a very early possible short there. I'm gonna leave it in actually, just so I can keep an eye on it. Yeah, so it's potential 4-hour supply. So I'd like to see this confirm into a 4-hour supply or an 8-hour or something higher time frame before looking for shorts on this. Gods is another one that I had. So again, just a very different structure, but one of the ones, you know, it's had a real push breakout. And then I was just looking for aggressive short entries on it. It's, you know, it is still in 4-day demand, but again, the overarchingly in 3-month supply. Just makes me want to look for aggressive shorts. And also when you've got something of a shit coin like this that's had a real giant move up, I'm not sure if again it was a delisting pump or something, I think it's worth looking for it to retrace. So I had an alert here for an hourly supply. I also had an alert, so I did have an alert here on the 4 hour here. It went up through that to the hourly, and then I had an aggressive alert on that on 12-hour supply, or maybe there's a 3-day or something, I can't remember in there, maybe just 12-hour supply here that came through a couple of days ago, Monday. FLM's another one, so this is just still continuing to push. I was looking for a lower high off this. Still in the 4-hour supply here that I had alerted from yesterday. It's also, again, I'm just being aggressive on this because we've got 2-month supply and there's a 3-month in it a bit higher. Sorry, Aussie man. What's more likely for the rejection of BTC, previous high, SFP, or bear trap? What's more likely for the rejection of BTC? Do I think the SFP is a bear trap? Is that the question? It did the same in 2021 before breaking the high again, and after that did a complete breakdown. Yeah, I think, didn't I cover this on? Didn't I talk about this in my last stream? I did talk about this earlier. I guess you've come to the stream a tad later, but I will repeat myself because I'm nice like that. So things I'm looking at. So yeah, I think I talked to you about this in the last stream, but anyway. Korea, last time, 2021. What we had was here a swing failure on the US dollar pair in October, but Korea didn't take out the high. Then, yeah, we dropped, and then we came back, and then Korea took out the high, and then we dropped. And I don't know, like, I like to look at Korea, and I'm one of the few people that does, or probably the only person that does, but I like the confluence of Korea. So the difficulty now we have is Korea did reject a supply, so it's not as strongly at the same level. And I actually did also look at, I think, pound, lower high, euro, lower high, yen, lower high. So that's really, I don't know, I kind of found that interesting. US dollar higher high, but all the others lower highs. And I don't know, I think when I went back to 2021, I think all the others didn't really follow. Well, yen was way stronger anyway, but I think all the others, yeah, also had broken the highs. Yeah, pound and all the others have broken the highs as well. But it's interesting, this time they're all at lower highs. But anyway, yeah, so from a confluence perspective, so I don't know, like, so as far as like, do I think it's a previous high SFP or a bear trap? I don't know. Like, I don't like to make those guesses because what we're just looking for is that we are at an area, frozen computer again, but okay, so it's looking like a swing failure of the high. We are at an area that, so the simple way I trade is, are we at an area that I want to look for shorts? Are we at an area that I want to look for longs? In this case, we're at an area that I would potentially look for shorts. I'm conscious of the risk of looking for shorts being that we are on this macro uptrend. We are potentially going to break out. So that's the risk side of it. But then also I'm going, okay, I'm an area like look for potential shorts. Is there a structure that I want to short? So I'm then going down all the time frames. So like if we start at the 5-day, I've said it already previously that I've got an alert here for 5-day demand just to see if I get a test. It aligns quite nicely with those previous levels. I'm conscious though that we have a possible stop hunt that can happen underneath here. But I would like to see a test in here, maybe then we'll get another push, which may or may not take out the high. Maybe it'll just make a lower high and then go and take those stops. But that's kind of where I'd look for longs at this stage. But on whatever time frame you want to be on, so at the moment, we are at an area of interest for shorts. We still are holding a 5-day demand. On this, and now we're on the daily, we still have a daily demand. So all I'm doing is looking, and I've lost a paintbrush. All I'm doing is looking for structures that allow me to short on the lower time frame based on the higher time frame resistance. And at the moment, I haven't really got that. In a perfect world, what you want to see is demand broken, and then you short supply. So on whatever time frame, so the daily, like I've said, now we've got this 12-hour here as well. So you can wait until that 12-hour is broken, and then is the new supply. You look for shorts there. But then you're aware that you're coming down into a 5-day demand. So, there's so many considerations. But at a minimum, you need to see demand break and then have a new supply that you want to short. So, for example, then if we go with the 4-hour, so this was your 4-hour demand. Well, in fact, still is, with the wick, it's still inside that. So again, we haven't broken down anything on the 4-hour. We do have new supply, but we haven't broken any 4-hour demand. On the 2-hour, we can go here. Okay, so the 2-hour, we broke 2-hour demand. So then we can look for shorts on the new supply. So there. In this case, it only made a lower low off a wick, so we've come back and we've gone higher. But again, you can still look for shorts on the 2-hour supply based on the break of this 2-hour, whilst knowing we're still in a macro uptrend and we have 5-day and 1-day demand below. So there is no reason you can't look for shorts on all of these zones, like I've just said, in the hope, and then it's up to you. You know, you can take profit here, you can take profit here, you can take profit on the 5-day, or you can go, right, I think that's the top, I think it's going to be a swing failure. But until we actually see demand break, so until this 5-day breaks, until this goes, no, and breaks the 5-day, and then we get a retest, and then we get the bigger drop, then we don't know that this is a swing failure. Like on the higher time frame, it's not a swing failure, it's a breakout. So yeah, anyway, so what I'm looking at is those lower time frame changes of structure. Structurally, on everything else, or sorry, not structurally, confluence-wise, in a perfect world, I would like US dollar dominance to come down into this monthly zone, and I would like Korea to potentially go up and take out the high as well, but it may not, because, you know, it is in supply. So we do have confluence already, but it's not the perfect confluence. Like, there's a bit better confluence that I'd like, but I don't always get it. You know, like certainly US dollar dominance, you know, when we were at the lows, like the perfect confluence I wanted was down here, and we never quite made it. So you know, don't always get perfect confluence. We have good confluence now, so I don't think there's anything wrong with looking for shorts. Good confluence, but not great. But as I said, yeah, you want to. So we made a new 12-hour supply in there. So again, similarly, from a shorting perspective, you can start shorting supply, but until it breaks demand, it's not considered strong supply. So it's exactly kind of really what I've been saying on all these alts, like, you know, that we can look for a short here, 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 but until it's broken demand, these are still high risk shorts. We're just shorting based on the higher time frame demand of 2-month supply up here. But that doesn't mean it's not going to go higher inside it. So it's all kind of just balancing and weighing off those different time frames. So that's the way I see things anyway. So yeah, do I think it's a rejection of a previous high? So we do have a swing failure on the daily at the moment, but we haven't broken demand. So a swing failure isn't like, people talk about swing failures like they'll literally go, oh, that's a swing failure because the wick's gone over something and it's like closed back below, but that's not the case until it actually breaks demand or breaks supply. If you're looking at a long swing failure, until it actually breaks demand, it's not a swing failure. Like the fail part, like it's a swing, but the fail part, it has to fail, has to actually break demand, and that's where a lot of people get it wrong, because so like for example here, you can say that's the swing failure of these wicks, and you can enter. Like, there's nothing wrong with entering. But until we actually break some supply, you know, if this is your last down move, until we actually get up there, then this isn't really a proper long re-entry. But again, you've just got to weigh up the risk reward, and you know, the probability of your trade working, etc., as to decide whether you want to take it. Anyway, so FLM, yeah, I've been short biased because we're coming into 2-month, 3-month supply. You know, it's come a little bit higher than I wanted, but yeah, I kind of did. While the market was moving slowly, I thought it was worth having a few different shorts on here. But yeah, nothing more really to add on that. L3 is kind of one of the ones that, yeah, has come down quite significantly and is back near support. So again, like I had long entry for 12-hour demand in here. I think it did wick through it eventually, and I've got another 12-hour demand below. No worries. And then I made a new weekly supply. So again, put an alert for weekly supply. So all of these, you'll know, and like, you know, I'm not always right when I do these, but look at how many entries that's given you, you know, scalp trades you can have on this, versus trying to be that one person that's going, I bought the bottom and I held it all the way to the top. So like, you know, here I could have gone, I bought the bottom. Oh no, I didn't. That's the bottom. And, arguably, is this even the bottom? Now we might go down here, and then later I'll be saying that's the bottom. So, don't be so hell-bent on this is all season and this is what you want to trade and all that sort of stuff. That's kind of my view on, and that's always been my view, but I reiterate that because I find that so concerning across the board that I see people calling, they see one green candle and they're like, this is all season, but just watch zones as and when they're here. Look for the new zones. Like if you're getting my alerts and you're in my Telegram groups and you can get the alerts, you're going, oh, okay, she's just had a long on 12-hour demand, but now we've got a new weekly supply. Like, even if I don't have that alert, you need to be going, oh, new weekly supply. I'm not going to hold this for any period of time. Or at least wait until it hits the weekly supply, comes back, does it have a new demand in it here? Is it going to hold? Is this a high or low? But it's still got to test that weekly supply first, and this could still push it down. So again, I then move my alert down. I'm like, is there another long entry that the weekly supply, weekly supply is going to play out, but we're still in this bigger uptrend? Maybe. Or is this weekly supply just going to crash it to hell? In which case we now start a new downtrend. We break this upper range and we start a new downtrend. Yeah, so that's L3 in it. Again, this is another one that I was trying to get aggressive longs on because I thought this might have hope. It had a decent move off here, but unfortunately the market hasn't been strong enough to support. So we're getting small bounces off each of these, and again, they're just another little scalps. 8 hour moved up into supply, another 12-hour moved up into now a new daily supply, and they're bouncing here today. It's struggling a little bit. The bigger entry is on 1 week, 2 week demand if it comes down here. These are, again, weak demands. So again, we're looking at, we have a strong move up, we've had a bounce, but now we come off supply. So any of these demands haven't proven that they can break supply. And, if we are, this could be corrective. If we are in an uptrend, then maybe we get a triangle and then we get a breakout. Can still make a higher low here, but again, just know what you're trading. These are weak demands. Each of them have given a bounce, but each of them, the supply has just rejected it straight back down again. And again, we don't have enough history in here. You've heard all season being called 3 times this cycle, all of them with high falls. Yeah, that's exactly that. I didn't sort of show you that. Like, again, like if you go back and watch the earlier part of the stream that you were, that I guess you missed. Like I talked a lot about the others, and I've talked about this so many times. The main time that everybody was calling alt season was here. I was like, you people are crazy. And it's much what I was just saying to you on Bitcoin as well. Like, you don't have to be bearish, at this point in time. Like, it's hard. Like, trust me. Like when I'm doing this and everybody's calling alt season, and I'm like, really, we're at supply. Of course, at this point in time, we might still just be going correction, break up. Maybe that was going to happen. But what I do know, and then that's what I said, I think I do remember saying on streams at the time, that again, until you see the structure that tells you that this is going to be a short, then you don't know. But what you don't want to do is long here. And that's exactly my view on Bitcoin at the moment. And people get so scared, they get so much FOMO. They're like, oh my God, I've got a long Bitcoin at 110K. And I'm like, just don't trade it. Like, even if it goes in there, like, well, what if it goes to 200K or what if it goes to 250? Well, that's double, sure, but you might get 10 times on an alt in that time. You are much better off waiting, rather than trying to trade Bitcoin at the tops, unless you're a scalper, obviously. But there is, even if it goes to 200K, even if it goes to 3, even if it goes to 1 million, like, frankly, you're better off trading alts. Like, it will take way longer for Bitcoin to get to 1 million. And, if you miss it, you miss it. But the simple fact is, like, don't be trying to long in supply. Just don't do it. Long in demand, short in supply. Somewhere like now, this is why, and part of the reason like now is why I'm being indecisive, because we're in the middle. So now, sure, you can look for longs on alts, you can look for shorts on alts, because I think we're going to get both directions. And that's what we have been getting. And that's what I'm trying to, and I think I've got better at it actually, it's what I'm trying to kind of be more firm about. It's like, in a perfect world, I'd look for longs if we were down here. In a perfect world, I'd look for shorts if we were up here. But given, we've had, where are we, 12th of May, so basically for most of May, we've been sideways. Obviously, you can't just not trade, or you can, but you don't want to just not trade. So just, again, trade both directions. But put simply, when you're looking at a macro chart, you're in a weekly supply up here, you're at a previous all-time high. it hasn't come down to a demand I wanted. So even here, like this, I wanted this there, hasn't come down to where I wanted in the first place. So therefore my instinct is this. And that's the same as like what I've been saying countless times on Ether. And I might be wrong, maybe I'm wrong, but you know, at a minimum, I want to be going, okay, I'm going to long alts here, I'm going to long alts here. I'm going to short alts there, etc., etc., but not wait till we're here and then go, oh no, it's all season. No. People are crazy. So I like to try and be rational, and also that for me it also helps remove all the emotion from it, because it's kind of going, okay, I'm not trying to guess like whether this is going to break out or not. And frankly, I'm not very good at that, because every time I think something's going to break out, it decides to defy me and go the opposite direction. So I kind of go, oh, this is a triangle, look, nice triangle. And everybody else sort of seems to do this, and then they drew an arrow going up, and it seems to work out for them. Every time I do that, I draw an arrow going up, it goes, meow. So yeah, I don't report to breakout trade, and I'm not great at consolidation trading. What I am good at is trading when things hit demand or when they hit supply. But at least for now, yeah, so alts, or at least based on this chart, I believe, I'm trying to get back to my alt chart. We've been going almost 2 hours now. I should probably sign off. Computer resurrects. Okay, yeah, so in it, yeah, as I said, risky long entries off demand, but I was just kind of hoping that we were still in a kind of bullish market for INIT at least. And FXS. Now YouTube is not receiving enough video again. This one I know how to short on this. I didn't short the retest. I've taken a wick. Oh no, I did have a retest short on that. Quite nice. So yeah, yes, that was that's what I was looking at, but I was, again, weekly supply, rejection off weekly supply, decent move down, but didn't break demand. But now, yeah, worth looking for a short on the retest. That's an early short to see if it breaks demand now. I think I probably covered enough of these anyway to talk sort of mostly about these sort of bigger structures. It's DOLO again, just at the hopeful, are we going to get a higher low? FHE was the bane of my existence. This is one that I keep wanting to break out, because I've been very long biased, and then I gave up on it. Then it broke the trend line, and I was long biased again. And now it's made a weekly demand, so I had another alert in there earlier today, and then it's going, screw you, and it's going to fall back through it again. So I hate FHE, and I've given up on it. And I probably won't look at it again until it breaks this, until this alert goes off, and then I'll be cursing. But we'll see. ABL, another short, that did take a wick through it. Cookie, really nice short off that one. Kind of came earlier than I thought, actually. I did think we'd probably get higher in this zone because it had so much momentum. But again, missed the re-entry on that, but it would have been a nice 8 or 12 hour re-entry there, and then we'll just see what happens when that gets back down to demand. But again, just looking at trying to get shorts at supply, longs at demand. Short supply, long demand. And yeah. So yeah, anyway, unless you have any requests, Aussie man, I will realise there, if you're still here, I will, I think, sign off and yeah, see what new alerts I have coming in, and then we're going to have a new month. So yeah, my outro, monthly supplies. To be looking at, not just supply but also demand. I don't think there's many demands though, not from what I've seen, but got to do all the monthly charts in 3 days time. I'm going to start them probably in the next couple of days, yeah, see what new monthly supplies and demands are made. And then for anyone who's in my group, be careful like any alerts. So for example, if I've got, a long alert in here and then it creates a monthly supply immediately above, obviously you don't want to take it. So here, in this case, if it closes below, it's an opening candle on MEXC on ZORA, but if it closes below 1,000 or 10,000 there, then it's going to create a monthly supply, and then I'll be looking for aggressive shorts. And this is already kind of in a downtrend anyway, but that's the thing. On the higher time frames, if I look at these, I'm still very much like these are in downtrends, but then I think it's difficult because they're taking their time. So some of this consolidation that we're getting on the lower time frames it's hard to know, you know, is this going to be an accumulation consolidation for a breakup again? But really, at the moment, I'm still biased to down on so much of this stuff. Have AI. Nice short in there. But yeah, loving it. Loving this market for trading alts, I have to say. Way more fun than Bitcoin. Yeah, so anyway, the outro is check your monthlies. That's the final word for the day. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. If you're not in my Telegram, please join my Telegram. You can chat to me there. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And blah, 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 all the usual crap. And have a great evening. Bye.